earth is bountiful. Her forests, soil, and seas provide us with food and the natural capital our economies are built on. But ever-increasing production, consumption, and the relentless use of resources are fueling our biggest environmental problems. How can we balance the needs of society, our economy, and ecology? We explore that today. Hello and welcome to Eco India. I'm Sanutha Raghu. India is often called the spiritual capital of the world. At the heart of this spirituality, many observers have noticed, is nature and its various elements. Flowers and leaves are offered to saints and deities. Rivers are prayed to as God herself. Trees and stones are considered sacred. Environmental activists are now mobilizing spiritually inclined communities to channel their energies towards saving the planet.
Namaskar.
He couldn't do it without the support of others. Swami Prem Parivartan, better known as People Baba, plants trees. He has been doing it since he was 11 years old. His teacher encouraged him to do it after seeing trees cut down to build a highway. That was 40 years ago. For some, the Ficus religiosa is a sacred tree. What were once tiny seedlings are stately trees today. Due to their large crowns, they're also called Bodhi or people trees.
These kind of canopies, the people canopies and the banyan canopies, the ficus canopies, they are visited by a lot of bird populations, squirrels and beetles and bugs and wasps and butterflies. So, so many species populate the canopy that the droppings of the birds in and around the people tree, they create a forest of its own.
After planting trees on his own for a long time, he founded the Give Me Trees Trust in 2010. It is an NGO that aims to plant as many people trees as possible. People Baba has found supporters in temples, like here in the Neem Karoli Baba Ashram and Temple, just south of New Delhi. Since 2018, the priests here have been important partners in this project.
The priests of the temple, they have a major role to play. So everybody starts doing the same thing. They are the role models. So we first educated the priest, we educated the administration of this temple complex, and when they started working here, then everybody followed.
The priests, temple employees, and the faithful have planted more than 30,000 trees so far. They also created a pond. As a result, the temple has become home to many birds, insects, reptiles, and other animals. People Baba has planted trees at hundreds of temples across India, while at the same time raising awareness for the benefits they create for the ecosystem.
I feel chlorophyll is God. Now how? Because of chlorophyll you have photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, that's why you have oxygen. Because of oxygen, I'm talking to you and you are talking to me.
Over the past 45 years, People Baba has planted more than 20 million trees across India in 18 different states. A Sikh environmental group is also taking advantage of the strength of their religious community. In 2009, Eco Sikh was launched with the idea of improving the environment together. The Sikh religious community feels particularly connected to nature.
There's a famous slok by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the first Guru of Sikh religion, which says, Pavan Guru Pani Pita, Mata Tart Mahat. And if I have to translate it in English, it will mean, air is the Guru, water is our father, and earth is our mother. Respect for nature is ingrained in Sikh teachings, and there are many verses that justify this. So if we act now, we can protect our atmosphere, water resources, earth for ourselves and for future generations.
EcoSec focuses on reforestation by planting microforests with the help of Miyawaki technique. This ecological engineering technique involves planting trees very close together in a small area, leading to a dense forest. They are planted using organic fertilizers and pesticides. And EcoSec claims that their forests have a 95% survival rate. In the beginning, it was difficult for EcoSec to find volunteers from within their own ranks. In the meantime, however, around 360 microforests have been created with more than 150,000 trees.
Now we feel whenever we approach them that their conscious is now for nature, for conserving nature, for protecting nature, and they want to know the ways in which they can do it. So it's good, the change is coming.
Another way of experiencing spirituality is through personal experiences in nature like tree walks. Radhika Bhagat regularly invites people to join her on such expeditions, like today in Delhi's Sanjeevan forest. There, participants can experience and feel the uniqueness of nature and its diversity. Her approach is not religious, but definitely spiritual.
There's a very famous quote by this environmental lawyer, American environmental lawyer Gus Speth, which says that I used to think that the root cause of environmental destruction is climate change, ecological destruction and species loss. But after all these years of his work, he realized that the root cause was greed, apathy and selfishness. And to address those, you need a spiritual and a cultural transformation.
More than 500 people have accompanied Radhika Bhagat on her tree walks so far.
While I'm touching the trees, the bark, the texture of the trees, I feel that something is really alive over there.
Rediscovering an awareness of nature and recognizing that action must be taken by everyone in their own way. People Baba, the Eco 6 and Radhika Bhagat are helping to blaze the trail.
Let's now head to Spain and one of its main rice-growing regions, the fertile Ebro Delta. Rising seas are threatening to engulf its low-lying shores. The government has a conservation plan, but it faces a fight from farmers who stand to lose their livelihood. Let's take a look at this complex situation.
Right here, says Jose Juan Sorribes, is where his neighbour's holiday home once stood. Today all that's left is this pile of rubble. It was destroyed in a devastating winter storm last year. They've become more and more common. Sorribes says they show climate change is increasingly endangering Spain's Ebro Delta.
The storms and authorities in action are harming us. They won't let people in the Ebro Delta protect their land.
Locals are growing desperate. Extreme weather events and rising seawater levels have eroded the coast, leaving little more than this strip of land near the river delta. It is the last line of defence between the sea and the countless rice paddies that lie inland. The Spanish government wants to nationalise over 800 hectares of privately owned land to turn it into an additional buffer zone. But the plan angers local rice farmers. Sorribes fears he could lose half of his crops, and it's not clear what sort of compensation he would receive in return. Most farmers are not only concerned about financial losses, though.
This is emotional. In many cases, rice fields have been passed on for many generations. I worked very hard to get mine. The government's plan doesn't bode well for the delta. In fact, it will destroy the delta and our values.
But not everyone opposes the government's plan. Environmentalists regard the delta as one of Europe's most important wetlands. Over 300 bird species inhabit the region. Sophia Revais runs a private bird sanctuary. She thinks there's no point in piling up tons of sand or dumping wave breakers in the sea as farmers are demanding.
The predominant mentality was to exploit nature to the fullest when practically the entire delta was transformed into rice fields. Now it's time for change, but not everyone approves of this. Scientists say natural solutions are better suited to reducing the effects of climate change.
For a long time, environmental groups have been protesting against another, related problem. The Ebro River is carrying less and less sediment into the delta. That's because dozens of dams further upriver are keeping the mud back. And mud is what the delta is made of. At this rally, demonstrators pour soil into the river to highlight that without natural sediments, the delta will be at even greater risk from climate change.
It's very important to restore the river's ecological impact. Otherwise, it will be extremely difficult to offset the effects of climate change, specifically the flooding and loss of land.
Rice farmer Soribes and his friends, meanwhile, could not disagree more. They don't want to wait years for the river to carry more sediments. Instead, they are expecting the government to take immediate action. Locals are divided over how to deal with the threat of climate change and the eroding Ebro Delta. Though it might be too late if they wait until environmentalists, farmers and the government reach a consensus. The next winter storm is always just around the corner.
Now, coal is the single biggest source of planet-warming carbon dioxide. Experts agree it must be phased out fast to meet globally agreed climate targets. So, plans to revive a former stronghold of British coal mining have activists up in arms. But for out-of-work miners, they offer hope for a better future.
Dave Craddock was a miner for decades. He loved his job.
That was the best job I ever had in my life. Miners look after themselves underground because it's such a dangerous occupation. Coal was last produced here in 1986, and then from there that was the last coal mine in Cumbria.
Now coal might once again be mined on the north coast of England to feed British steel mills. That's despite new advances in technologies like renewable hydrogen, which climate activists hope could soon make coal superfluous. The entrance to the new mine shaft is said to be on this former factory site. Carol Wood and her husband Robin are part of a group opposing the new coal mine.
We are actually seeing the impact of climate disaster. It's not in the future, it's happening now. And we haven't got any wriggle room. We absolutely need to keep this coal in the ground.
The death of the coal industry made Whitehaven one of the poorest places in Britain. Many here hope the new mine will bring back lost jobs.
I think they should let it happen and give more work out here because there's nothing. And it's a thriving town, but it's going down now.
It still needs to be done until they have an alternative, because we all need steel. I don't see any problem with it.
That's taken underground at Hague.
Former miner Dave Craddock and his friend John want the new colliery to be built. They understand environmentalist concerns, but as long as coal is still needed for industry, they say it's more environmentally friendly to mine it locally.
I've seen how mining's done in America, where they'll strip a mountain top, extract the coal, they call it strip mining, and then just leave it and move on to another area. In China, they haven't got the safety regulations we have.
Climate activists successfully lobbied for the project to be reassessed by the government in London. They argued that every new mine floods the market with coal, creating further emissions. The new coal mine is expected to remain operational until 2049, a nightmare for climate activists. Many here in Whitehaven are just hoping it will bring back some of the prosperity they used to enjoy.
Like India, single sachets of shampoo, coffee, or laundry liquid are ubiquitous in Southeast Asia. For multinational companies, these fast-moving consumer goods bring in big business. They work because large bottles or packs are often too expensive for the poor. But they aren't in fact a better deal. Moreover, the packaging waste they generate due to their single-use design is terrible for the environment.
Imam Kanafi does his rounds in this Indonesian suburb. He's a trash collector. A lot of sachets land in his cart. The small plastic packages are ubiquitous in Southeast Asia.
I find more kitchen waste in housing estates, but in the villages more sachets are thrown away.
The single-use packages are part and parcel of Imam Kanafi's own lifestyle. He lives in a small house in Tangerang Selatan, together with his older sister and his niece. Laundry soap, shampoo, toothpaste, all supplied in single-portion plastic packs. Even the spices for their food come in sachets.
If there's no sachet product, I don't know what to do. The sachet is very cheap. The amount is just enough for one meal. If I could buy a big pack, I would buy laundry soap, bath soap, dish soap, sugar and coffee. But unfortunately, I only have a little money. And if I buy a big package, I'm afraid I can't buy other necessities. The important thing for me, the price of the sachet is cheap, and I can cook every day.
And pay the rent. As household help, she makes some 50 euros a month. Her brother earns between 60 and 120 euros, though their income does vary. Even together, it doesn't stretch to a middle-class income. That's why they prefer to buy single sachets. It gives them flexibility. But over the long term, it's an expensive way of managing their household. A large bottle of shampoo or laundry soap would be 20% cheaper than the same amount in sachets. But sachets are the main range in local stores.
Many people need these sachets, so we get lots of customers. They're more in demand because they're easier to use. Customers spend 1,000 or 2,000 rupiahs. It's very cheap for them.
They're so cheap that even down at the riverside, sachets are used for doing the laundry. The way it always was.
Sometimes I only buy one sachet, sometimes two, because sometimes I have a lot of laundry. Sometimes I use 2 sachets a day.
It's a huge environmental problem. Empty plastic sachets are all over, and they're non-recyclable. Environmentalist Tiza Mafira thinks it's monstrous that these packages are still being manufactured. She's fighting for a plastic-free world.
Every single region in Indonesia will have a traditional market. And they used to sell daily items in bulk. They used to sell it in bulk. We would go there with our own containers. We'd get a kilo of rice, maybe a few eggs, bringing our own baskets. None of them were packaged. And that went on fine. The same goes for soap. We could buy soap bars back then. There was no problem at all. We didn't have to buy liquid soap in sachets.
About 50% of global sachet production is based in Southeast Asia, and the region is where most of them are sold, a lucrative business.
A lot of the brands that whose names are on the sachet packages are brands of multinational, fast-moving consumer goods whose companies are all around the world, and they've originated in developed countries. They originated in Europe, in the United States. We're very familiar with these brands. The irony is that in Europe and in the United States and in the UK, you won't see sachets. You'll see these brands sell their products in bottles that are recyclable, but not sachets. The only place where they market sachets is in the developing country, ironically, in a place where there's so little capacity to recycle those sachets.
Unilever is one of the top brands here, especially when it comes to shampoo and laundry soap. The company declined an interview, but it did write to say that it's working on producing sachets made of only one material in future, rather than several materials, which makes them impossible to recycle. But the company won't comment on profits and inequality in sachet sales. Nothing's likely to change in the short term for Imam and Darcia Kanafi. They have to decide on a day-to-day basis exactly what the family needs.
I use sachets because they're cheap. The amount is just right, and they're easy to use.
And once again, he takes off on his rounds. The companies who produce the sachets know they can count on their Indonesian customer base.
Now, like the eco-spiritualists we met earlier in the show, Randall Plunkett is also an idealist. This Irish baron has made it his mission to bring back untamed nature, rewilding a whole third of his estate. Let's see how.
The 21st Baron of Dunsany, Randall Plunkett, is the sole heir to the estate of one of Ireland's oldest noble families. On some 700 hectares of land, the family pursued farming for centuries. And one of their chief mainstays was cattle rearing. But Randall Plunkett has broken with that tradition.
When I started this, it was completely uniform. Everything was just grass this big. There were cattle and etc. And then I took the cattle out, and now this whole place became wild.
Randall Plunkett is a pioneer of a new trend in environmental protection called rewilding. It involves restoring large plots of farmland to their natural state, renewing the ecosystem and letting wildlife return.
My goal now was to protect this environment because that's the challenge of our generation. It's not longer about poverty, it's no longer about education, it's now about protection of our wild.
Ireland is known as the Emerald Isle, but 65% of its green space consists of agricultural land. Industrial farming has displaced ecosystems, while over-fertilisation and intense pesticide use have pushed species to the brink of extinction. In terms of forest cover, Ireland is at the bottom of the league in Europe. The 38-year-old Baron of Dunsany continues farming, but he's rewilding a third of the land.
I always knew I'd have to live a life as a caretaker, because that's what I am. I'm a caretaker. This isn't mine. This is just, I'm looking after it for this generation. But then gradually I found something that I was interested in, which was the wild. And I realized, you know, I have to fight and protect this place and everything that lives here.
After 7 years of rewilding, the result is impressive.
As time went on, things started to happen. Animals started coming back very quickly. And then I started helping a bit. I'll plant trees. I will allow animals to be put back into the wild. Only animals that were already here. So foxes, rabbits, badgers, things like that.
He gets the animals from the nearby wildlife hospital, the first of its kind in Ireland. It has treated over 2,500 injured animals since opening in February 2021. Dunsany will soon be teeming with foxes, otters, hedgehogs, and birds of prey.
So that makes his estate extremely important to us and to the animals here. And it means that 10 minutes away from the hospital, we have the most natural environment for our animals.
It's really inspiring to see so many young people. So they're like me, they're people who really want to make a difference.
But Randall Plunkett faces opposition too, especially from hunters.
I stopped hunting at Dunsany. That obviously created a huge amount of tension. And so they were threats against me. They threatened to beat me up. They threatened to cut my face. They threatened to slash my tires. They threatened to set fire to my house.
That doesn't deter him from patrolling his land every morning and night.
I will not bend. I made the decisions. I'm on the path. Nothing will stop me from doing the things that I need to do in this generation.
Randall Plunkett doesn't receive any funding from the government or NGOs, but society is becoming increasingly aware how crucial rewilding projects are.
When it comes to sustainability on Earth, the last few years have made one thing clear. Either we get with a plan and aid in maintaining the fine balance on the planet with other living organisms and resources, or we continue our extractive practices only to be rendered insignificant in the future. The choice lies with each one of us. Think about that, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye, and thanks for watching.